Okay, here we go. Okay, so this episode is going to be titled Surviving Your 20s, featuring this Shabrea Duffy, graduate, how old are you, 26? About to be 26 in June.
Yeah.
I should have had you send me a bio. I didn't do that. Where did you graduate? Georgia Southern.
Okay.
She didn't choose the HBCU, unfortunately, and that's okay because
We're not going here. I did.
She's a bright child.
HBCU.
She took her talents to white. She didn't want to take all of her.
We're not starting to
smarts.
this way.
She didn't want to bring her smarts where they would be appreciated and celebrated, but that is okay because she's successful anyway. So I wanted to talk to you in particular about this episode because I was like, I want to bring Brianna for the DFA because we have good business conversations, but this one is special for me because we met each other almost 5 years ago.
Yep.
So I think August is going to be 5 years. And so you watched me go through, I think everybody goes through like this identity crisis once they graduate college. But at 25, I was about to have like this.
Yeah,
I'm turning 25. It's halfway to 50. And so I remember, I will say your friendship is the only friendship that I've had that I felt like I actually was able to see, like an age difference. I was able to see the differences. Like we're only like 2 years and some change apart. But I just remember you're freshly graduated. Well, we graduated around the same time. She's gifted. She graduated early. But graduated probably like a year apart. And I, at that time, was just really trying to figure out who I was. And you were kind of like, I felt like you were like, well, you walked into the real world like, here I am. Now you also were I think you were going through a breakup when you first graduated. So I think that changed a lot for you, but you were just like, what are you talking about? And you were right, 25 is young and all this stuff. And so I remember Angel and I told you, we were like, Bree,
yes, y'all
you
did.
turn 25. Something is going to go off in your mind like, oh my God, I'm getting older. And you were like, I just don't think that's gonna be my life. And you said a specific sentence. And if I were not trying to quote it right now, I would remember it. And so now, switching gears, I'm in my later 20s. You're about to be 26. Yeah. And it's like, I was like, Bree, how was that 25th birthday? You're like, okay, so it's true. So I'm really excited to have this conversation because I feel like we got to watch my journey and then I got to watch yours. We were kind of separated for the past, I think, year or two. So I didn't have a front row seat to that. But even from a distance or even just us talking lately and being around each other lately, I'm just like, that's crazy. Like, I remember when you turned 23.
Yeah.
I remember when you turned 23. And I'm like, oh, I gotta hear this. And so now the conversations that we've been having, I'm like, yeah, this is a good topic. So the first thing I want to ask you is, well, where are you right now? Like mentally right now, where are you?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. I want to start off by responding to a lot that you just said. So for one, the ironic part to me is that when we were doing the podcast, we named the podcast that we used to have 20s are us. And I feel like that's ironic for us even having this conversation years later because one, the whole idea of 20s are us, whenever I still speak on it to this day to people, it's about bridging that gap. Yeah. And so now to come full circle to me being like mid-20s, you can't go backwards. So I'm close to the 30s and I am 20 now. So you think about still like in your day-to-day bridging that gap between those who came, those who are in the middle of it, and those who are out of it, the perspective of the 20s and the pressures that come with that. So to answer your question, like, yes, I definitely experienced that 25 anxiety fear that came when my birthday hit. But I would say today, to your current question, where I am now is, I feel like I'm evolving into all the ideas that I had at 25, but I'm also giving myself a lot more grace. And the reason that I'm giving myself grace first is because as a child, you have all of these ideas of the things you're supposed to accomplish at 25 because it seems so grown.
It seems old.
It seems grown. Like I remember my cousins that I looked up to and my older siblings, like when they hit 25, it was like, oh, that's the family member with money, the family member with a job. Like you just idolize that age because it's like you seem to have your stuff together. But I give myself grace now that I know that I'm in it and knowing like, you're really not, because now I'm 25 talking to the people, those same people that were 25, now they're 30, 35, and they're like, no, 25, like you're doing good, like it's young, take your time.
It's so young.
Yes, and so, but the evolving stage for me, I just feel like overall, like this has been like my breakthrough year as far as like business, mindset, a lot of the things that I've been wanting to accomplish, transitioning from corporate to full entrepreneurship, like just kind of everything aligned, and even spiritually, like being patient with that time and respecting that time, and you know, realizing comparison is the thief of joy. So like walking in your own path, living in the now, like a lot of those things, which I'm sure we'll touch on now. Like I would say now I'm in that mind space of like continuing to grow, but still giving myself a little bit of grace.
Yes, the grace part is really important because the goals that you set in yourself is self-inflicting. So you're like, if you say, oh, so this guy, I was listening to this podcast and this guy was saying, the quickest way to defeat yourself is by setting unrealistic goals. So don't say, I'm gonna lose 100 pounds in 2 months, because most people cannot lose 100 pounds in 2 months, even the healthiest of the healthy. And so I said that and I was like, one of my goals is to be a millionaire, but what's the step before a millionaire? It's 6 figures. So I was like, I'm gonna be realistic with myself. I'm gonna give myself 2 years to make 6 figures or whatever. And honestly, when you take the big pressure off, it feels more attainable. Like I'm like, oh, I can do this. Like 100,000, that's only such and such. So you feel like, okay, I can. So I think that's really important. And I had to grow out of that in my early 20s, was just setting realistic expectations, because being married by 25 and then having a kid by 30, and by those measures, I'm failing. I'm failing by those measures if I'm using that to measure my life. So that is it's hard to do, but it's necessary.
And I want to comment on that because it's so important to set measurable goals. And we don't hear that enough, but I forget the name of it's like it's either a role model or it's some type of acronym for when you're setting goals. Like there's an acronym for the things you're supposed to follow. One of them is measurable, obtainable.
What is it?
I can't remember. We're gonna drop it at the end or something. I'm gonna figure it out.
Yes.
But
we learned about it.
Yes. But to your point, so I set myself a goal of being a millionaire within a year. And you do have this, I know you have to scale back, but let me tell you, like in having that goal, I had to realize a lot of things. And that thing is that our world just has conditioned us to unpopular opinion, but time to me is a man-made thing. And so like if we didn't have something that says there's 24 hours in a day or rise and fall of the sun and the moon, like what would you make of your time? And so we put these time markers on 25, 27 kids by this age, kids by that age. And it's like we really can't measure ourselves based off of those things, but there's so many other systems in place that reinforces it. The system of education. Okay, so by this age you graduate middle school, this age high school, this age college. And then it's like, I feel like with that, a lot of the people, like my MVPs and stuff that I mentor, one of the things that I always tell them is that stuff is good. It gives a structure and a foundation, but the problem is once you have nothing else to check off on your list, that's where people start to experience identity crisis. Because you graduate undergrad, and it's like, okay, what now? And then it's like, you got one last checklist you can squeeze in if you want to go to law school or get a graduate degree. But then after that, you're like, what? And I see, like, even me, I fell victim to wanting to go back to school for something because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good at school. I graduated with my master's, like, let me just go get something, because we have to feel like as humans, like we're always accomplishing something. And sometimes I feel like, going to school, getting a trade or getting a license or getting this just makes us feel like we're checking something off the list, or to feel validated or to feel like you're still progressing in life. But at a certain point, like all of those credentials stop where you don't have a checklist to say, I've done this anymore. And you have to really just find who you are, because there's nothing else more long looks in there. Like you can do that to distract yourself.
I really like what I'm doing. And you'll find a lot, but speaking on that, on conditioning too, a lot of it has to do with how you're raised, because I didn't know until, I always knew I was in a hate corporate, but I did not know that until I got an internship my junior year. Oh my God, it felt like death. But I was so conditioned to believe oh, you go to college, you get a degree, you get a good paying job.
And if you get enough degree, you get more money.
You get more money.
That's not true.
And I was like, it's not. It's a myth. No, I was going to say something crazy, but I ended up getting this job, this top internship. It was the best of the best. Only 3 students in our whole business school were selected, and I was the chosen one. It was this big deal. I was miserable. Here I am, a junior, the summer of my junior year in college. I'm graduating next year, so I'm trying to secure this job that I'm miserable at, and everyone is telling me, this is amazing. and the money, I was driving a Charger on a company car. Like, you have so many perks, and all I was thinking in my heart was, I hate this. If I have to leave here next year and do this, I'm going to be miserable. What do you do though? Because I called my mom and them, and I'm like, I really want to do fashion. And it's hard to go against the grain. It's like, what was I gonna do? Go to fashion school? Who was gonna pay for it? Like, where did I go? Like, here I am in this small school in Alabama saying, oh, I'm gonna take fashion seriously. You know, I didn't really have the courage to say, bump that, this is the direction I'm going, because I just really didn't know. I didn't know I was gonna hate it that much. And here I was about to graduate. And so I think for me, the expectation of what people expect of you is crippling too, because but we were talking about the measure, right? My family said, go to school, get a good job. I did all of that. Came out miserable. It's here I am, 6 years later, still hate corporate. I knew then, and it's like, it's hard to find that strength to go, I'm gonna buck the system and do what I want to do. But if I could go back, I'm like, I would just go straight to fashion school. But it sounded crazy to everyone. And even I remember some of my friends going like, French, like, this is a lot of money. Like, you're gonna make it great. My mom told me, she was like, the job offer came through. She's like, you're gonna make more money than I'm getting now. And so what was I gonna say? Oh, I'm not going. Right. I'm not gonna take this job. They were gonna be like, so what's the plan? What are you gonna do? Now, luckily, we live in different times now, because like now you see a lot of money your parents don't do that. They go, okay, what's the game plan? Maybe we don't need school. So I think that was really helpful. So I want to ask you, what is something that you believed in your 20s or your early 20s, or maybe even like graduating from high school? What is something that you thought about adulthood and you thought about your 20s that is absolutely false? Like, you're like, it's just not true. Or what is something that you think it proved to be true? Like, you heard it about your 20s and it is true. Either one. Okay.
So I think we touched on some of it, which was the fact that people have it all together in their 20s. So that's definitely a myth that I'm starting to realize, like, in actually being in my 20s is not the case. But what I would respond to that by saying is, I think that when I was growing up, I figured that successful people in their 20s and after their 20s, they were successful because they were always planning for the future. And although I still believe there is some planning of the future, because I am planning for the future now, I'm starting to realize, like, being in my 20s is more about the now. And not the now in, oh, I'm gonna live, have a good time and enjoy my life. But what I'm saying is, I feel like successful people become that way because they live their life in continuous years. And what I mean by continuous years is that sometimes I feel like, and even this is something spiritually that I'm learning, but if you're always planning for the next thing, you're not getting what you need right now. And a lot of times doors can be closed on you because you're not taking the full, you're not being present, you're not getting the full lessons of everything you're supposed to do. And I have experienced in this last year, like, with so many opportunities coming my way and everything, that I feel like it's because I gave 100% of the task at hand, to where so many people and things start knocking at your door, to where now people are seeking you because you put your all into what's just the task right now. And a lot of times when we're always like focusing on that out there, is you have to have a vision so that everything that you're doing in the now is intentional towards that step. But if I don't give my all right here, I'm only giving 20% here, 30% there, and it's all over the place, you're not you're not putting that brand on your work for people to want to say, I want to work.
This is her domain of expertise.
Like
I can hire her for this thing because she's mastered it. And I think it's about living life in continuous here. It's like always being in the moment, giving your all to whatever task is at hand. Because I even battle with that. Like, so right now, I just got a promotion at my current job. I'm still in corporate America, don't want to be there, want to go on full entrepreneurship, but I had to realize, okay, God still has me here for a reason at the end of the day. Yeah. And that reason could be because, for a number of reasons, but the thing that I've taken from it in the recent weeks or months is that there's lessons here, although I hate this, that could totally translate to what I'm trying to do in the outside world. There might be some emotional intelligence I need to learn to deal with. There might be pressures and challenges in my new role. I'm dealing with people that I feel like may not totally like me in my new environment, but learning how to maintain professional relationships and still get things done in the midst of that. And there's some type of test that I have to pass where I am right now. So although I give my, and I'll talk about that later, but you still have to do the task at hand, and that's still going to be moving. Like everything I'm doing is still coming, but you just have to take what you're supposed to have in that moment and then see where it carries you after that. So yeah, it was this quote when you were talking. It was this quote that came to my mind. It said, hey, look, this guy posted it, and it was saying, as long as you have this idea that happiness exists somewhere other than where you are, in the next job, in the next travel trip, in the next anything, you'll never be happy where you are. And I applied that to everything. I was like, as long as you have this idea that success is when I make $1 million, success is once my business does this, like success is all the way over there. What are you now?
Here.
And yeah, like I'm actually successful right now. Now I may not be where I want to be, but I was like, man, it was one of the things I feel like everybody kind of stopped and went, yeah. Because you won't be happy. As long as I say, when I get here, this is gonna make me happy, it's always something else later that I'm like,
no, and you summed it up better than I could, because that's the whole idea of like always being in the here. Because if you always say that when I get that or when I get that, like you're attaching your success and your happiness to something that when it comes, you're gonna be like, we just talked about previously, well, what do I do next? There's nothing else on the checklist. And so it's about being in the here. And one thing too that I've conditioned myself, like with everything that's going on, like if obstacles happen or something doesn't go as planned with everything that I'm working on, I always try to tell myself, and I literally just left a meeting and told my friend this as well. I was like, this is a part of the process. Yeah. You know, that like, it's not when you become that person you want, when you get that position. This is a part of that process. It doesn't start on December 1st. It's now. It's molding you to that. And so that makes you appreciate this moment a little bit more, because in hindsight, like you have to be able to tell your testimony to the next person. And so whenever I'm faced with a challenge, I'm instantly thinking, okay, this is just a part of that process. It's just another obstacle I had to overcome, another part of the story that somebody else can relate to.
Can I stop you right there? Let me ask you this. That mindset that you have, do you feel like you had that at 19 or 20? Like when you
absolutely
not. You feel like when a challenge came to you, you said,
I felt like it was the devil fighting against me. It was the devil.
The world is like, oh,
they don't want me to
be great. Like they're attacking us, and that's a good part of growth in the 20s. And I'm glad you touched on the corporate America part of it too, because you speaking on, oh, they don't like me here. I remember when we started. Now I do think they were still hate, but it was people I felt like, and I tell people this all the time when we talk about the corporate America and the struggles. You get it from the white people. You get it. You expect it almost. But when you and I were going through that program, you know, I wouldn't name names, but I specifically thinking of 3 women, older Black women, that hated on us so terribly. Like they would go to our bosses on us, like little small stuff. Like it was just very nitpicky with us. And then I remember when you went number 1, none of them said congratulations. None of them said good job. But when it's a problem, they were the first ones in line to tell you when you were out of line or to correct you. And that part always made me feel like you take it personally because it's Black women, but also it was the mindset of that's just being young. Like it was like, oh, they're trying to attack me. I felt like, oh, you know, like this is like, why do I have to deal with this? But what you find is sometimes, even in corporate, like these people are just people.
Yeah.
Like you want them to help you out because they're Black and they should understand you. But it teaches you how to problem solve quickly with people that are disrespecting you, because it's gonna happen no matter what industry, entrepreneurship, school, whatever you do, you're going to have to. You're gonna have to deal with people that are difficult to work with. You're gonna have to work with people that dislike you. And the difference in how I handle situations now than how I handled them then, because I remember one point I was like, oh, I don't care to say what I want to say to her when I get to the office. But then you almost get bit because you don't know what positions people are going to end up in. You don't like this person, but then she ends up promoting higher and can be your boss. But because you've been disrespectful and you're young, you don't know, and she was wrong. But you have created this whole. So, like you said, like that lesson now, learning that later after being corporate for years, say, okay, I'm not gonna let anybody just disrespect me, but learning how to actually deal with those situations. I think it's just an experience thing. Like experience helped me. Experience taught that.
The process, and to your point, the process, I look at it now, my perspective is that it just builds my strength for what I'm always thinking like, okay, God just wanted me to get this other characteristic on my back, so I'm prepared for the next thing. And it's more of an optimistic mindset of, okay, all of these things are going to help me for what's to come. And I'm always having faith in what's there. Like we said, never giving up on that. But I just take this now as kind of building my character for what's to come. Like people a lot of times say they want fame or they want riches or they want financial stability, generational wealth. And it's like all of those things come with their own battles. They sure do. No matter how, how glamorous it sounds. And so you have to be able to always take the lessons that are here to prepare yourself to deal with it. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. So if you want all of those things that come with that glory, that comes with that crown, you have to also make sure that personally, before you get it, you ain't got the money yet, you ain't got the crown yet, you ain't got the power yet, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally, you're able to maintain it when you get there. And I was gonna say something else about the process, because and another thing too, like people are always thinking, why am I still at this job? You get so frustrated with yourself, like, why am I still here? Why am I still there? And the change in the mindset is that you're supposed to be. It's probably because you're still supposed to be, because your ass still ain't learned. You haven't learned lessons. You probably haven't learned discipline. Discipline too. A lot of people want certain things, and what I have found is, it's hard. Just even me, stuff like working out. No shade to the BBL community, any of that. But it's just certain things that I always have felt like, don't cheat yourself. Before I'm ever going to get surgery, because I'm not against, people do what they want to do. I hope that that's something that I never choose for myself. But I was like, let me do the work first. Let me do the work first. But let me tell y'all something about the work. It's gut wrenching. It's hard. You have to go when you're tired. I'm up here, hair probably looking crazy on the camera right now because I'm natural. If I sweat in the ring, I can put heat on my hair every day. Even that in itself, and I have to come to work and look presentable. That'll take a lot of Black women, especially now. We're like, oh no, I have to be looking crazy about a head every day. And so that type of commitment going when you don't feel like it, and just pushing your body, controlling what you're eating so that you can maximize your body strength, it takes a lot. And I cried at the gym before, and it's like it's no escaping the work. And so I think that for me, it's like a lot of people go, why am I stuck at this job? Like, why am I here? And the truth is, in order to obtain any level of success that is not average, in order to not be making minimum wage, maybe be in the 18% with the six figures of the world, it takes a level of discipline and consistency that I honestly don't think most people have. Most people do not have it. If you're telling me you cannot get up 3 to 4 times a week, an hour, 4 hours in your whole week to just work on your body, you mean to tell me you're gonna have the consistency to manage $1 million every day? You're mismanaging. Geico, I think we can say that Geico shares their profits, but you're mismanaging a profit sharing check that you get once a year, but you want to make 6 figures. I don't know if this is a Bible quote. Lord, I don't want to misquote the Bible, but I know in the Bible, in context, it says something of it, God will give you dominion over small things to see what you can do with big things. If you mismanage $1,000, you're going to mismanage $5,000. It's true. It's true. And so a lot of times when we ask ourselves, why am I stuck?
It's because we don't even have healthy habits.
Yeah.
Like we don't even have consistency. And so you gotta take a hard look in the mirror and go, why does my body not look the way that I want it to? Like, why does my bank account not look the way that I want it to? And I think a lot of times if you ask yourself, am I honestly giving this 100% to change? The answer is no.
Yeah.
The answer is no. So you have to do the work.
I totally agree with that. And I think a lot of times too, people think about just the working out or the eating right as just what it is, just that part of it. And it, like to your point, it goes much deeper than that. Building the consistency around working out, building the consistency around eating healthy. That discipline translates into other parts of your life where you can see a huge benefit of it outside of just your physical appearance. And so it's rewiring that mindset as well, just thinking that it's solely for the purposes of looking fit or eating right. It's a little beyond. You're building discipline for it becomes a lifestyle at that point, not just
you're building a lot. You're trying to stay healthy so you can live longer. It's certain things that you don't get that you get from like working out that you don't get from anywhere else. Your scalp naturally detoxes when you work out. It's a lot of other health benefits that you get, like you said, from doing that than just looking at the thing itself. And so that part, earlier in your 20s, you don't think about it that way because your metabolism is so good. And it's like, you know what, now switching gears a little bit, I remember I was looking at pictures from like 2018, 2019. I was so small. And I remember you used to tell me, you used to be like, I like your body. Like, I think it's fine. Like, and I was like, why was I trying to work out so much? I did really good. And then you get bigger and you're like, wait, I was like, I want to be that size again. And I was like, Brie, I weigh such and such. And you was like, you don't weigh that much. I just don't think you weigh that much. And then I look back at the pictures all the time, Brie. I gotta pull up one. And I was like, I remember killing myself. And remember I started with leave-in when I went to, I don't think you went to 40's beach party with us, but I remember, and I looked at this picture, I looked at it often and I was like, Brie was trying to tell me that I was skinny. And I didn't believe her. Look how small I was. Brie, look how small I was. I thought that I was huge.
And your head looked big.
It looked big. I don't care what y'all say. I like thin girls. Like I like to look thin. I'm fine with it. I don't have the booty, so you gotta keep it there. Anyway, so what is something that you believe, or what's the right word? What is something that you swore by? Like in your earlier 20s, because now you're in mid 20s, let's say maybe like 19 to like 23-ish. What's something that you feel like you swore by, like it was like, this is law, this is what I believe in, that you just don't now, that you're like, my whole perspective on that has changed?
Okay, so this is gonna tie back into what we've already been talking about, but it's like, I can only stick with what I know and what has been working for me. And so, relating to the conversation we've already had, I think something that I swore by in my early 20s, I was fresh out of college. I even went back to school to get my MBA. I was doing all this stuff at Geico, and I felt like I had to give 100% to everything that I did.
Give them 50. and give 100% on Friday. Spread out your.
Yeah, so I used to feel like I had to, like, I was big on like brand management. So like you always have to protect your brand. Nobody's gonna say that I fell short on the work, or I always wanted whatever product I turned in, whether it was a paper for school or performance at work, it was gonna be my best work. And I pride myself in that. And it was killing me. It started killing me. It was killing me physically, it was killing me emotionally. And I say now, with me, like the biggest thing in my life right now, and again, only speaking to what I know, is I'm in this area of transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship, and it has taken a lot out of me. And on the corporate side, because you probably know more than others, but I felt like I had to uphold that idea of real that they had when I first came in, and I used to get them 120. And
we was the golden child at work, y'all. I don't know.
And then at some point, I
came in at 50. She came in at 100.
I wish I would have came in low. So what I'm giving now, they not giving me so much issues.
Y'all, they want to bring me up there so that, which is so funny because I still, in ways, because of the representation, that's the only reason, because I get not wanted to work, to do that. But for the representation purpose, you were one of those people who's like, she's smart enough to do it. She's like, it's just you're the kind of person that we really do need in those higher up corporate environments. And so I was always on your side, like, nah, you see how y'all treat us like she don't want to be here. But Bree was a baby Lauren, and Bree was gonna be like the head of everything. And I love that for you being a Black woman there, but I think they slowly, because it took them time to realize this is not where you want to go. I honestly feel like they didn't realize you really didn't do what they wanted you to do for like 2 years at least.
Yeah.
Like, and they took it hard. They're like, she's not interested in it. Like, maybe she's not. And so
on the corporate side, I feel like that's the battle I dealt with. So I was still in this area of like, okay, I have to give 100%. Like, I gotta prove like I'm still that person. It wasn't look like, and that's one thing I didn't want anybody to say about me is like everything that I did countrywide being like the number one person performance wise and stuff. Like, I didn't want anybody to ever take that away from me by like not doing the work now. But then also too, on the entrepreneurial side, I have business partners that's all that they do. And so a lot of times too, I would feel a little bit uncomfortable or out of place, like going to meetings and feeling out of the loop. And so then I put myself in overdrive trying to work 10 times over there as well to make sure that I'm maintaining, I still am competent on this end. My partners still have 100% trust in everything that I'm doing. And so then you're trying to get 200% out of a person that only has 100% capacity. And so one of the things that I'm still in the process of learning it, but one of the conclusions that I've had to make for myself is that, and this is for anybody who's dealing with this, like, this is what works for Bria, take it with a grain of salt, but I had to learn to get down a system that works. And then you repeat that system enough times for it to become a pattern. And with humans, like, when anything becomes a pattern, you can operate on muscle memory. And from there, like, once it's muscle memory, you just perform on autopilot. And I feel like right now, I'm getting to that phase where I got the system down. I have a system that works, that can still get me top results at work, keep them off of my back. And I've done it so much now to where I can perform on autopilot and spend less of my energy and emotion being drained here, and then I can focus more and shift there, because what you don't want to do is also lose sight of where you want to be by still letting what's there keep you back. Like, I'm still willing to take the lessons for where I am now, but I also know too, like, it does take a sense of kind of just putting the plane on autopilot in order for you to invest your intention and emotion somewhere else. Or if I didn't, I would honestly, because it's more pressing, I would let it consume me. The thing about working in corporate versus entrepreneurship, ain't nobody setting no deadlines for you. So your project gonna drag out as long as you let it, or you can hold yourself accountable for the same deadlines that my current job is holding me to. And guess what? I'm meeting their expectations, because if they tell me by Friday, I'm doing it. But then over here, the thing that we do on Friday, I'm doing it next Wednesday now. But it's like, if you care about your business as much as you care about them, put them on autopilot, meet their deadlines still. And then you make sure you have time to meet your deadlines.
Actually, it's a great point. Okay, so I want to switch gears here off of the kind, because we talked a lot about business. Has your views on friendships and relationships changed from your earlier years to now?
Absolutely.
So what do you think has changed? Friendships first. Like, friendship wise, what do you feel like is different for you?
A lot of things. I wish I had time to ponder on this one. I've always been this way, but so it's not necessarily a change, but it's just something that I'm appreciating more. But I'm a very hands-off type of friend. And I think that's, for me, something that I'm realizing, like, it works well when I have other friends that are that way. And no offense to any friend or another, but I've just never been the type to sit aside like time every day to kind of talk on the phone and every day. Like, I don't even talk to my mom every day. And some people just do though. You know, some people talk to their friends every day. Some people talk to their mom and spouse every day. But I work best when we can go some time without talking, but when we talk, it's an hour or two on the phone. We catching up, but we got something to talk about. Like, if we just breathing on the phone every day, I just feel like I respect that space, that healthy space in friendships now, where you can go do what you're doing, I'm doing what I'm doing, but we never doubt our position in each other's lives. Like the absence of each other doesn't make us feel like, oh, they ain't my friend no more. They're not there for me. Like at the drop of a dime, if you call me, just know that I'm there.
Yeah.
But I don't have to talk to you every day to validate that or to confirm that for you. So that's one thing that I feel like is still my view on friendships now. And I would probably also say.
So do you have a friend that will want to talk to you every day that you prefer not to?
I don't think that I have friends that want to talk to me every day, but I have friends that I feel like require more attention in order to feel like we're not in a weird space. Like if we go a little bit too long, it'll be, oh, I got an issue with you, or it's awkward tension. But I got some friends like that, like I don't feel no tension when I pick up the phone and check in on you because you respect that space. But I do feel like for some, it's like if we go too long, it's all of a sudden it creates this mystery of, do we have a problem? And it's like, no, we don't.
We're just living our lives. So
it's a little bit more high maintenance.
You know what's crazy? I didn't even think about that when I was thinking about what my answer would be in that regard. But that part of me has changed tremendously too. I used to be the friend. Okay,
yes, you were.
I have it was never on my end though. Like I had not answering my phone, and so I try to watch that. But I have friends, and at one point, even like my mom, and I have like 2 friends, and I just remember earlier, like even from maybe like graduating college up until maybe like 23, 24, I talked to them every day. It was a part of my life. We knew it was going to the job. That's just the nature of our, I mean, we can sit on the phone for hours, like every day. Like these are my best friends. Like this is my mom. Like I can talk to them every day. And now I think to some degree, and I also think 2 things have changed about me though. I used to be an extreme extrovert. And so that was important to me. So how I express myself, especially coming out being to go to job, I couldn't deal with that on my own. So I had to talk to them. So it was an outlet for me also. I think I have changed. I do think I'm still an extrovert, but I don't know. I think I'm like balanced. I'm an introvert and extrovert. Like I can go weeks without talking to my friends now. And even still, like once I let a month go by, they're like killed somebody. You know, hey, what's going on? Like, especially when I post on social media, like, you know, you good? And I'm like, yeah. And I feel good. Like, I'm waking up. I'm in my spiritual bag. Like, I'm in my grind bag. Like, I feel good. And due to not talking to my friends, which I love, and I think that part of me will never change. And but I don't rely on it so much anymore.
Right.
Like, I know how to pray through some situations. I know how to talk myself through some situations. I know what I need to get myself up and get going again. Because what I've learned, or I think too, the environment of how you communicate with your friends and stuff has changed because people are being open about, well, we don't really call like, before 2021, 2022, when have you ever heard somebody say, can I unload on you?
Yeah.
No, you just call your friend up. I don't believe that happened to me today. And it's like, because I have experience, it's like, I guess we didn't have a name for it, but I vividly remember probably in the past year that I was just really having a heavy day. You know, it's something like, it's just heavy. And all I wanted was to just go home. And it's like my friend called me crying about something that was serious for her, but I just really didn't have it to give. Like I just didn't. I was like, oh my God, I'm going through stuff too. But you don't want to do that to your friend. Yeah. It's like you don't, you want to be there for them and you want to talk to them and help guide them. But sometimes you just don't really have the energy to give other people. And until these past few years, you don't hear the, hey, are you busy? Can I unload on you today? Because that's really respectful. Like we're learning how to respect each other's emotional and mental space. But I think for me, I don't think I'm an empath, but when I like people that are close to me, it still affects me.
Yes, it's taxing.
Yes, it's taxing for me. So if I know, and I was like, but that works both ways. At one point I was like, wow, I'm calling Kendra every day to learn about this job. I never realized that could be a lot for her too. You know what I mean? Like and so I think when I started internalizing it that way, I said, you know what? I'm gonna figure this out. And I would give myself, so I think 2 years ago I started this rule because let me tell you something. When I tell you I'm an extrovert, if something happened at that job, I'm calling Milton, my mama, and then I'm getting on the phone with Angel, and then I was telling Keandra, and then I was telling Kel, and I was gonna text Nick about it, and then I was gonna text my other friends and say, y'all know what's going on, and then I was gonna put it in the group chat. And so what I did was 2 years ago, I started this rule that was something bad happened to me, or it was like taxing on my day. I had a two-person limit to talk about it too. And to see now, like now, sometimes I can go through stuff and I'm like, I'm just saying to anybody, like I'm good on this. Now I am gonna get to it, but in that moment, I've learned how to calm down and control my emotions there, and then say, okay, I can't, and then when I talk to them, I'm like, last week. And when I catch myself doing it, I'm like, wow, it was a time where I had to make at least 6 calls and talk about it. That's draining for them, it's draining for me. I was giving it power, I'm giving it energy. And but you don't think about stuff at that time. So I went around the world, but I said that to say that part of me has really changed. Like I used to be like you've always been that way, but I used to be the opposite of like I have to talk to my friends every day. And when that shift started happening to me, I feel like, like my friends get upset. I don't answer the phone. I know. Like I know. And I check on them messages. Like I try to answer my phone a little more, but just me being as unhappy as I've been the past few years, I don't think people realize what an internal battle that is. And it's not always that I'm just wanting to ignore you because like I feel bad. My mom's like, grandma's been asking about you, need to call her. And I'm like, I do. And so for me, it's just like now that I've kind of transitioned to this balance of I'm kind of introverted, but I'm still an extrovert. Like your friends respond to you differently because like they feel like we used to talk every day. Like now I don't know. And then if I say, oh, last week, they're like, oh, why didn't you tell me last week? Like, why you didn't tell me that your boss did this? Like, oh, so did you? Like, who else knows? And that part is really interesting.
It is though, because I feel like what you're speaking on is in our 20s, like it's just like if you're in a relationship and we got married at 16 and now we're going through our 20s together, like any relationship, whether it's you and your mom or you and your friends, people are still growing.
Yes.
And a lot of times too, like we have an idea fixed on who a person is. Like, okay, Naree's an extrovert. Naree's gonna call and she's gonna tell us about her day. And then when Naree makes a transition to being an introvert, a lot of times people are still the people closest to you. They know you so well that they think they have you figured out, but you're going through a transition. And some people get offended by it. Some people can realize the growth if you talk through it. And some people they just don't know how to respond. And it's about allowing people to grow.
The space to grow in your mind.
And so like that's definitely hard because it's not like you going around telling people like, hey, I'm growing.
Like allow me the space to grow.
It's like you just have to recognize it because we're constantly growing. Just like the world is moving, you don't feel it. Like it's a process that people go through. And you do have to get to the point of being able to communicate that at some point. But I feel like for me, the issue is that it's always in hindsight. And so like once I figured it out, it was like, girl, this what's been going on. This is why this and that happened. This is why we ain't been the way we used to. And we don't normalize, first of all, realizing what's going on with us. Like now I can recognize like if I'm being stretched or growing in a certain area. It used to be sometimes you don't even know what's going on with yourself to be able to tell a person why you're going through. Like, hey, I'm just going through something right now. Like, going through it. So I do think for me, like that's like an area of opportunity. Like while I'm going through it, if I at least recognize I'm growing in a certain area. So one of the ways that we've done it already this year is I've done so many vision boards in my life. Like, it's just not a thing that I thought about doing in my recent years, but me and my friends, we made a commitment to do one at the beginning of this year. And we actually like had to tell each other about our vision board, picture by picture, the entire time we did it. And it was so funny because we were like telling each other our long-term, short-term goals, spiritual goals, mental health goals, like, and really getting deep about it. And one of our friends, for example, he was like, I want to do a better job at giving people their roses this year. And so literally like seeing him go throughout the year and take time to just acknowledge us randomly or literally bring us flowers, we'd be like, oh, look at you growing. Like, so, but that's a way of showing people or acknowledging. Now, all the time, you're not going to be able to have a formal meeting with your friends and have a vision board, but just find a way to let people know like what you're focusing on because your support system also reinforces that behavior. And so they have to know in order to make sure that you steer on that right path. One of my vision board goals was lead with love. So this year I want to make sure in everything I do, I lead with love. And you know, being derailed sometimes, like you have to make sure you have people who say, well, okay, well, if you want to know how to respond to this, I'm gonna only give you advice that's in line with what you said your goals were for this year. You say you want to lead with love, so send her the text message, have the meeting with her, or go do this and go do that. And we just have to articulate that though, because I always did it after the fact.
I think what you said is important. I don't want to go in depth about this, but I do want to say, I feel like I have been saying that so much in the past 6 months, but you've got to allow people the space to grow in your mind. And I say that because I have this friend who was in college. He was known to be like, he's a jokester, and he can be what people say a bully, or like he was like this person that was super messy in school. And he is just like, yo, we graduated 6 years ago. Like, and he was like, so when people bring up my name, they're like, oh, he's so messy. And I'm just like, it's true. It's true, because if I run into my college friends and his name comes up, they go, oh, he's so messy. And I'm like, no, not really. I'm like, no, like he's really actually like career-wise, like salary, he's like changing jobs every 2 years. The salary is going up, like really going to therapy, like he's in therapy now. He has so much good things going that if you're not close to him, or you know, like you're keeping him at freaking 19, 20, 21 in your mind. We're 28 and 29 now. You're keeping, so allowing people the space to grow. And it's not the him that I want to touch on, but what I will say is, what I have learned is, I feel like I experienced that with my family. Yeah. Your family raised you. They raised you for 18 years, and they just feel like my mom, it's like they know you know me, like, oh, I know you. And I'm just like, when I go home, it's like, even still to this day, if I go home, it's certain things that they say, they're like, oh, not really with it. And I'm like, actually, no, like, I really wouldn't. And they're like, oh, we know you. And I'm like, huh, like, I want y'all to allow me the space to grow in your mind, but it's hard for them. And when you're trying to talk to certain people, trying to beat messages to their head does not work. But it's like, things that I don't particularly care for them, like associating with me. I'm like, I'm not 18 anymore. Like I don't, even when it comes to like certain stuff, like, oh, well, Nari, she'll say that. And I'm like, no, I've done that in years. I don't never do that to that lady. I'm not even famous to be canceled when I was doing some of that. And so when you said that, allow his face to grow, if any parents are listening to this, like, yes, you want to know your child in and out, but like I'm becoming a grown ass woman. Like I'm about to be 30s, hopefully in the next few years, married with children. And it's like, but in my mom's mind, like she just knows me. And so it's like now that I'm shifting and I'm changing, I'm going through all these changes. It's like they don't keep up. Like they're like, oh, you just like to argue. And I'm like, I actually really don't. I really just like to hear other people's perspectives. And I like people that listen to me. And I feel like when people hear opposition, they go, oh, you're trying to argue, instead of just saying, I was like, okay, let's have a conversation about it. Like, why every time someone brings up a different opinion than you, is it considered arguing? And so that's when my pet peeves when I go home. They're like, who likes to argue most in the family? And it's like, not you. And I'm like, I don't even think it's arguing though. Like, we had a whole debate. We're not gonna get into all this, but we had a whole like Bill Cosby arguing, debate, and all this stuff. And so I would not let it die because it did not agree with some of the opinions. And it was like, I was like, we were like yelling. Like, to me, it wasn't arguing. It was like, oh, I feel like X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, really? Because I feel like X, Y, and Z. Why do you feel that way? That's how I felt like it was going. But when people go, oh, you like to argue, like it's almost insulting to me because I'm like, I'm an adult. I'm capable of having a mature conversation. I'm mature enough to have a conversation with a different opinion than you, and us still like not agree and then not be an argument. And so again, my friends don't feel that way. Like, well, you probably Mikhail, but like Angel, like some of my other friends, they're like, I don't really get arguing. It's like, because we get deep. Like, we like to have deep conversations. So for them, it's like, oh, we have a deep conversation. But to other people, it's like, oh, you like to argue. So when you said the allow space to grow, I love that. So we talked about that in friendships. What about relationships? Like, is there something that you used to be attracted to that in a person that you're not now? Ooh. Because I feel like younger girls, not that this would be us, but I do know like younger girls, of course, looks like, and you know, you should like, no, we don't have some money or something. So looks don't really do it for me right now. But is there anything that you have in particular, like that you like when you were younger, you're like, oh, I really like this in a guy, and now that you're older, you're like.
So I'm gonna be honest, as far as like what has changed in attraction, I think for me, I've always had, at least in that department, my head on right about like wanting a certain caliber guy. Like, do I prefer looks? Yes. First thing I look for, teeth, fingernails. That does matter to me. But outside of that, I
can take them a little ugly because I like them tall. So it's like you gotta have somebody. That's my compromise right there.
But outside of those physical characteristics, I say like the personality characteristics and the integrity and the morals, like those things for me have always been a huge part of making the cut. And so like I would keep everything the same as far as what's on the list. The only thing that I will say is that in the past, I had the tendency of dating potential, and I no longer want to date potential. And so like now I'm no longer dating potential, and you have to be able to, because I've come to realize like everybody on this God-given earth has potential. Like everybody got potential for something, or I think so. I think everybody has potential for something. They're good at something, or they have a talent that they were blessed with. Like, or you would not be here. Like you woke up for another day for a reason. So everybody has
purpose. I don't know about potential.
Everybody, well, to me, if you got purpose, then that's the potential to. I don't know. There's another debate.
It's perfect.
No, so I'm saying potential as far as like your career goals and everything. So with that being said, like learning to decipher people who have potential, but then people who are walking in it. I'm not in the capacity or mindset anymore to like carrying someone along with me or like helping you reach your goals, because I feel like I led so much in my previous relationships that I want to be led down. Or not even necessarily be led, but grow together. So like there may be areas for like, okay, well you're good at the finances or you're good at this, so I'm gonna lean on you, but you're good at these things, so I'm gonna lean on you. And just to at least have something in the relationship where I can lean on, and it's not me the expert in 100% of everything. So I'm basically you become baggage at that point because you have nothing to offer. I'm teaching you everything and I'm pouring everything into you, and it's taken away from the things that I want to focus on and achieve as well. So I would just say that part of it, just making sure that I go past because the heart of me, like anybody with a good heart, and if you have potential, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna help you get there. Like I see so much in you. I want you to see what I see when you look in the mirror. And it's like
people like you in the world.
No, I don't want to be that person.
Well, let me say this: there is power in that, because let me tell you something. If you see the potential in people that are actually willing to do the work and put in the effort, then I think, because we see successful marriages that have come up that like you see the potential in someone, you know, like look at people that are married, famous now.
Let me say that to you. So the hold up for me is that I didn't believe that if I had to do it. And so in my mind, like you said, if a person like me met somebody who had potential, and you was like, okay, well, I actually pushed them to become their better selves. I didn't believe that was a thing, because I believed that if I had to come push you to do it, like if you were capable of doing it, you would have done it without me. That was my mindset. So you don't need me.
So that's a little controlling then.
No, the thing is, like, so if I had to come into your life to get this, you weren't gonna do it anyways. If this was just in you, if you just had the raw ability to chase your dreams, go get it, you would have done it prior to me coming in your life. But it's funny enough because I had, so I hope they don't watch this. I really hope they don't watch this. But I had lunch with a friend a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about like their relationship. They're married now, and they're working on so much. Like they have Airbnbs in Mexico. They just flipped 2 houses in Atlanta. Got a couple and they rent out to college students in Savannah, all of that stuff, like doing really good power moves as like they're in their first year married, mind you. And so, but they dated when we were in college and everything, and we were drinking and stuff, and I just made a comment. I was like, you know, when we was in college, I never really saw that in him. Like, and I was just like, it's crazy because I feel like we spent so much time together, and I just, you know, I didn't see him talking about these things, so it's so crazy to see him have a huge interest in the real estate now. Outside of college, she was like, to be honest, he did. She was like, it took me to really pull this out of him. And she was like, I'm pleasantly surprised. But like, that was my first time being open to the idea that, well, maybe you can come into somebody's life and push something out of them that's been suppressed for so long. But I was just like, if I gotta come in and do it, you just gonna take it. That means I'm gonna have to carry you the full duration of everything that we're doing.
But I think too, when people who come, so again, just kind of what you're saying, she had to come, she's like, I help, but you literally can only help people that want to help themselves. So she might have had to push him, but he still had to do the work. Right. And so I think sometimes women do it to a fault. Like, I think it's okay to come into a situation and say, okay, so he's working, he has his things in mind, he has potential to get to where he's going. But I think what a lot of women do is they take the men that have absolutely nothing going, trying to see the potential. Right. That's two different potentials. That's different. I don't know that I can be the girl that was like, I see potential in you. No, I like smart guys. I've always liked smart guys. I've always liked good guys. I like guys with their heads. I'm like, I knew it wasn't no potential. He's gonna be X, Y, Z. True. Like one of my exes was like an engineer, one was like a lawyer. Like they are still
on track to do that.
Okay, I need potential. I was never that girl. If you come around here,
you think about doing what?
You thinking? Huh? What's the do? Where's the action? The action.
You always planning for something.
Always planning. No. I was never that girl. But the relationship side of me is a lie. This probably has to do with a lot of underlying things that I just did, that we'll have to unpack later. But I wasn't. I was kind of like, you got to kind of have it together for us to be conversing in any capacity. So relationships, we talked about things that you're attracted to that are different. What do you feel like, this is a good one. What do you feel like you had to unlearn in your 20s from your childhood?
See, I feel like all these questions I keep answering, they run together because I've had to unlearn so much.
Like what?
I want to get the good ones, but I need time to think about it.
I'll go first while you think about it. Because when I wrote it, I said, ooh, I feel like a lot of people spend a lot of time, especially late 20s. I think that's when you start to be a little more self-aware. But I think like late 20s, early 30s, you spend a lot of time learning. And for me, one thing I had to learn so I could start learning things, and I had to learn that my mom is just a person. Like my uncle and my aunt are just freaking people. They don't know, they don't have the rule book, the life, they don't have it all figured out. They're just people that are making their own decisions from their own perspectives, from their own life experiences, and giving me the best parts of what they think that looks like.
That's not
so I say that to say this. Even I grew up, I feel like I had a great upbringing, but unlearning the things that you were taught as a child, be it religion, be it, we talked we had a deep conversation last night about the LGBTQ community and how the world is shifting. Like, what if you grew up in a super traditional household with your best friend happens to be a member of the community? Like, how do you deal with that? Because it's an internal battle of like, well, I was raised and then, but I love this person. And so I feel like I've spent a lot of time unlearning certain behavior traits and mindsets, and it's hard because it's your mom. Like, my mom wasn't doing anything to harm me. She wasn't trying to teach me anything wrong. She was doing the best that she could. And so for me, I think a problem with our generation, my generation, I'm a millennial, and Brie won't accept that she is just, what's your Gen Z or what are you? She's one of them. She's one of them TikTok kids. She's one of those. She's that bread. But I think a part of our generation is like, what I hate on social media is we just feel like people act like they cannot change your mind once you learn new information. I don't care how great you grew up. When you learn new information, it is okay to change your mind. It is okay to change your behaviors. And I feel like a lot of people won't do that because you have to admit that maybe the way that you were thinking was kind of wrong. Like maybe the things that you were taught, because you call your mom wrong. Oh, my mom's a good mom. Yeah, but she's human. She's wrong. Like she could have been wrong. She could have told you things that were wrong. No fault to her. But now that you know, are you going to change or decide, to be continue to do what you want to do. And so I think that has been one of the biggest battles for me, because it's just a struggle. Like, I'm like, I was raised this way, like this is just what I believe. And then now I'm having to say, check myself when it comes to maybe dealing in relationships, dealing with friendships, like, okay, that probably wasn't the healthiest behavior. And when you start to unpack that, it gets deep, because you would take some long looks in the mirror and you go, I don't really like this about myself. Like, if my mom wants to say this way, if my aunt wants to say this way, I'm gonna let them be who they are. But for me, this has to change. And I feel like a lot of people don't. They hold on to those things and they stay the same. They, they take their upbringing serious and they're like, no, I'm just gonna hold on to this. And so I think for me, that, not touching on anything in particular, because I can go in depth about the things that I feel like I've had to unlearn, but just things that I feel like I was taught growing up, or behavior traits that I thought were healthy that I had to learn were not really healthy. And so I think for me, that's like something I really like had to unlearn, unpack. So we're about to wrap up, but no, this is my interview. You can be, I'm a talk show host, guys. Okay. We got more questions. We do, but I like all our topics. We can talk about.
I know we got.
I can run these things.
I haven't gotten into it.
Like, yes, I can run this. I can run a lot of these topics into the. We have to do a part 2, because I can run a lot of these topics into the ground.
Yeah, I want to get in a rabbit hole.
20s, we haven't scraped the surface of anything. We'll get to some stuff. So this is interesting. Earlier I was thinking about this, and I just want your opinion on it. But because I have my opinions. I have my opinions on why, and I'm sure one of ours would be the same, but I'm sure you have many reasons as well once I ask the question. But I just want to hear your reasonings behind this. Why do you think? Because I don't ever feel like this for men. I don't ever hear a man stressing about turning 25. Or a man hear about turning 30. No, McKenna didn't care about that. Like, he don't care. I'm like, ooh, about to be 30 again. He's like, It's just, he doesn't care. Why do you think us as women, like, why do we have a complex about becoming older?
I feel like time has always, from the beginning, since man created time, it's always been for women. It's always been because you have to have children by this age. You have to be, like, that goes back to old times, while women have been systematically accustomed to being sensitive to time. Yeah. And then nowadays, I feel like even still, first of all, like, women in business, I feel like now that women are getting into business, like, again, speaking from a time where we weren't able to vote, we were just homemakers, baby makers, we were just that, to now a place of, like, women are really stepping up. Women are the lead entrepreneurs, lead CEOs in business and stuff like that. I feel like we have this idea that we have to do it all. So like, being married and having kids is still on your goals list. Like, you didn't mention that earlier, but you also mentioned you wanted to be a millionaire. Like, men don't have to worry about all of those things.
Not simultaneously.
Right, exactly. And so for women, like, you're racing the clock with biological time, but then also you want to reach your goals and you want to enjoy the fruits of your labor once you reach those goals to a certain time. So you're trying to cram everything in a certain time frame. And really, when you look at it, like, most people who try to plan it out, women, you look at 25 to 35, that's a 10-year span. 10 years to do all of that. Yeah. Find somebody, marry them, have kids, and become a millionaire, and enjoy it. Travel and enjoy it before you even pop out the bed. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. I definitely do. I think that our bodies change. I think spiritually as well. Like, not that there are men who are not spiritual, but like it's just a transition when you start to think about where you are in life. Like, the things that you should have together. Women are a little bit more anal about, this, and that as well. So just all of those things on one plate just makes us feel heavy.
I was thinking, and because I'm in that battle right now, because when this guy was like, how old are you? 31? I said, no, I'm not 30 anything. What? Hold on. You're going too far. Like, you pushing it. You about to get off my phone. How about that? And so I was just like, but what? Like, why? So what? Like,
And it's hard to change your mind. That's about what I'm going through. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's just something about 30 that's just like, oh, it's changing. But so I looked up the life expectancy in the United States, and it's 77. And so I know we have a biological clock, and I know I've been guilty of this, but I've been looking at, just time in itself. But I've been thinking, I was like, we have 30, young 30 years.
Yeah.
Great. If they're expecting us to live to 70, it's 40 years of life. What is so bad about your 30s? Honestly, I'll push it 50. 50 is young relative to how long life expectancy is. So if you live to 70, 80 years old, 50, that's 20 extra years, 20 years on the earth.
Yeah.
50, I'm not even 30 yet. That means I have
over
30 years.
We overthink everything because, when my child is 5, I'm
gonna be 42. To the daycare, baby, quick,
yeah.
Because
but also 50 doesn't look like 50 used to. Like my mom is 50, and my mom put on her heels, her makeup, and she stepped out. She's about to be in May. She turned 50 in May, and 50 doesn't look the way it used to. Like our idea of 50 back then used to be, for whatever reason,
it was because I'm
old, and it's like
50-year-old
people
really
come to the club.
I don't think 50 really changed. I think now we're just looking at it because I'm like,
I think it has. I think we have a lot. I think we have younger grandparents. We used to have older grandparents. I think it has changed a little bit.
I know, because my grandparents are not like that. That can't be true because boomers, they had all the babies young. They were trying to get pregnant in their teens. So a lot of us have younger grandparents. It's just, I think we age ourselves because think about it. Even if your grandma dressed like a grandma, you only know that because she dressed like that. If your grandma would have put on, like my great grandmother is still alive, so you could go, she's probably just in her 80s. But like my nana, if my nana was to like when she put on her like her stuff, like her makeup and stuff, I'm like, my nana don't look her age.
Yeah.
She dresses her age, but let's be real, they put on club attire or something, like I don't think that they just look different. I just think now in this world of social media, we're kind of like seeing like, I'm like, we've always known black don't crack. Like a lot of our grandparents still look good.
Yeah, not look physically.
Great.
Yeah, not look physically, but more so behave like that.
That's true.
I think and I should have clarified that, but the grandparents that I thought of growing up like behave like grandparents. Like they stayed in the house, they watched kids, they cooked a full course dinner.
They age themselves,
but now like my mama, she quit to tell my sisters, not this weekend.
I'm not watching kids.
I'm going out. And look, and my nephews don't call her grandma, they call her grandma, or they call her Gigi.
No, that's Gigi. Don't call her grandma.
Right. I think more so like in that idea, like the grandparents then used to be
that's
traditional,
very traditional. That's what
like I remember going to my grandparents' house every weekend. Like they weren't going out. When my mom was going out, they was watching this. My mama skipped watching them kids some weekends. Like she just really do. But
you know, I kids like you out. I have a life to live, which I love. I'm like 50 is young.
Yeah.
40 is young, and then 50 is young. That means 20 something, 30 something is extremely young. Like we're kids. We're kids, and so I just always wonder. Which I mean, I guess I know that it's like the society pressure of why we think, like a woman, like we're anxious about age and stuff. But I'm just like, why? I just think it's a lot of stress that it's self-inflicted, like we place it on ourselves.
Yeah, we definitely do.
For sure. Is there anything in you're turning 26 soon. Is there anything in like your later 20s, maybe early 30s that you're like looking forward to?
Ooh, I'm looking forward to a lot. We talking high level or low level?
Just anything, career, mental, spiritual, whatever. Like that's just something that you feel like for your later 20s that you're looking forward to.
So I'm gonna go high level because if I go low level, I feel like it's a million things that I look forward to. From it's a bunch of nuances that I look forward to by the time I'm 30. If I'm gonna speak high level, I envision by then being in a position to create generational wealth for family members just outside of myself. Well, that's generational wealth, but just like I don't want to be. So I'm working on right now getting myself in a position to where financially I'm stable, I have assets for the future, like, and my unborn children will be fine. Like, I want to, by the time I'm 30, be able to put my family members and friends in positions to do the same for their kids. Because the last thing that I would want is to be rich alone. Like, because then you have all the pressures of like all of your family members calling you. Like, I never wanted that. I never wanted to be the person that's the only one that made it. And, you know, I do well for myself now, but I'm no millionaire. And even now, like, I experience the constant phone calls because comparatively, like, a lot of my family members rely on me for certain things. And so I can only imagine what 7 figures looks like, what those phone calls looks like. And not only do you want the pressure or stress of that, but I also, like, I truly pray every night that, like, my sisters, my close cousins, my mom, my grandparents, like, they reach what happiness feels like. And I want them to be able to be fully into their passion, whatever makes them happy. Like, if it's Kiki wants to have a daycare, if Shay wants to have a restaurant, like, I want them to be all in on what it is that they want. And I want them to be able to provide for their kids through what makes them happy. I want to be that person, and by the time that I'm 30, that gives them a jump start into those things because they have financial leverage for me, or they have backing, or they have the support of being able to fail but still keep going and pay bills. I would love to do that for my family by the time I'm 30.
I love that. So when you said that, I was like, my favorite Jay-Z quote, Jay-Z, the greatest rapper of all time, Hov, you Sean Carter, whatever you want to call him. My favorite quote by him, one of my favorite rap lyrics by him is, over here we measure success by how many people are successful next to you. Over here we say you broke if everybody is broke except for you. And listen, I don't ever currently, like, literally when I graduated from college, my best friend said to me, he was like, "We're gonna see, we'll get to $1 million first." And this is why I knew he was gonna get into stocks and stuff, but I don't know that when we start making the kind of bets. But it's like, yes, and then like my friend's about to sell his house, and he's about to have like this huge profit, and so my other friend is about to teach him how to do some investing. And so it's just like, I don't want to be around, or let me not say I don't want to be around. I'm gonna choose my words carefully with that. Kind of like you, I just desire to not be the only friend, the only family member that like makes it, or the only one that knows what success looks like, or has money, or has financial freedom, because I feel like that's miserable too. Because you'll suck you dry, like you're, and it's taxing not only financially and mentally, and so that hit the nail on the head with that one. I really love that. Okay, last question. We've probably been talking for 2 hours.
I don't think so.
Yes, we have.
Make sure we start.
Oh,
so we write it out.
Are you serious?
We write it out.
Why didn't that thing? I'm surprised that thing didn't stop. Are you gonna cut this part out? That's why I keep looking at it to make sure. I'm like, I have to make sure this thing is on. Actually, that's not my question. So, would you change anything? Answer this truthfully too. Okay. Like, would you change the way that you've done anything so far, as far as your 20s? High school and below, I mean, even college and below. I mean, well, I guess you like 20 in college, so maybe like 22 and up. Is there anything that you would change?
Yes.
Thank you. Because most people would try to go, oh,
yes.
I wouldn't change a thing.
No, I never get them.
Man, I could go back. Come on, man. Come on.
Yes, there's things that I would change.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I would be weird.
There's things that I would change, but there's things that I'm still working on to say, like,
yes. No, you absolutely, your future's yours. You have the right to change it. But I'm just saying, if you could go back, what's something that maybe you would have done sooner, or like what's something that you would change?
So I'm transparent on this. So I would go back and I would change my emotional intelligence. I would.
Speak on it. Speak on it. EQ is important.
It is. It's just as important as IQ. It's so I'll
take that back to
understood.
If I understood emotional intelligence in college,
I took an emotional intelligence class in college. That don't mean that you got it.
You didn't use.
I aced the class. I read the book. I took the EQ quiz at the beginning of the semester and at the end, and we supposed to 6 months after.
Maybe it's something that life teaches
all
you.
that.
It's just
It
is.
And I'll say this, like, there's a lot of different roots of it, but I'm gonna try to make it real quick. Growing up, I was raised in a household where emotions weren't expressed enough. And two, it was anything bad that happens to you, it builds character. And so you don't dig into how you feel enough. And I would say that in my earlier 20s, I can speak on this from a friendship standpoint. I can even speak on it from a business standpoint. It hurts you to not have emotional intelligence, because from a friend or a relationship standpoint, you need to know how to express yourself outside of frustration and anger and emotion in a way that's healthy to get your point across. But a lot of times, if you don't have EQ, you're expressing yourself in a way that's not conducive to a person receiving your message. And I'll say from a business standpoint, as far as emotional intelligence, it just makes you make illogical decisions. And one of my mentors who's helping us right now in our projects, he said, ain't no emotions in business. Like, he even told us with the property that we're trying to acquire, he was like, one thing about it, like, I'm not a millionaire for a reason. He said, don't ever get too much emotional attachment to a project or to a piece of property, because he said, when the price is right, sell it. Yeah. He was like, don't ever get too much emotional attachment. Business is business. And that's just one kind of example on the business side of how I can handle you, but more on a larger level, business wise, I feel like emotional intelligence will have you messing up a blessing. And this is the part I kind of want to get into, because I'll never forget Rick Holyfield. That was my mentor in middle school. And I'll never forget, he saw something in me at a very young age, and he always told me this. So this is like my go-to quote. Whenever, people are like, what's your favorite saying? This I've done said this my whole life, mind you, not reading from like middle school to now, and I repeat it anytime I'm doing something, and I'm just now starting to experience it. But he told me, if you're the most of anything in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I always said that. I always believed it. Like, yeah, he's right. Like, if you're the most of anything in a room, like, you have nothing to gain. Like, you want to be around people who you can absorb from, you can take stuff from. And I'm telling you, like, literally 2 weeks ago, it was 4 of us in the room. 2 of them was millionaires. One of them is 6-figure, and I felt small. And I reminded myself about that quote, because I was the one who lived it, who preached it, who always said it. And it's so much more than just sitting. It makes you feel like you want to run. It's like, how blessed am I?
Smart enough. You just sitting there like,
you don't feel like
talking about. Like,
and it's on so many levels, because it's like, how blessed am I to be able to be in this position and be in this room and literally doing a business deal with people of this caliber. But at the same time, your emotions and your pride will have you being like, this is too much for me. I'm not competent enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I don't understand the terminology enough. And I have to remind myself, like, it's okay. And they also too foster an environment where it makes me feel like I still can grow. If I don't know something, I feel comfortable asking, like, what is this? Because I don't feel like I'm around people who will turn their nose up if I don't know anything. Like, they saw something in me enough to be like, hey, we want to do this with you. So, and there has been a teaching component of it, but I can only imagine if that part wasn't there, how many times I think about just being like, this is a lot for me. Like, but then fear takes over. That's another attack from the enemy. And it's just so much more than just a saying, because I literally caught myself the other day being like, I've said this so many times, and now I'm actually in here and I feel small.
You feel small. And
let
me tell you this. I'm so glad that you equated emotional intelligence to that part, because we like to get on social media and run them quotes to the ground. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And a lot of people experience what you experience, and I have too, is when you get in those rooms, can you play your part? Can you sit in the room, be the, probably, not that you're just slow, but can you be the most,
you want to say the dumb stuff, and that's uncomfortable.
And it's uncomfortable. Can you be the most inexperienced and ill-informed person in the room and still walk out feeling okay? And for a lot of people, ego kicks in. And then you'll leave, and you'll be like,
you just want to say something.
They just
to validate yourself.
They try to make me feel, and it's like, no, they just being who they are.
Or you're fishing for something to say too, to stand out, and people in that time, they can call.
They know what you're doing. Like, they know exactly. But oh my God, I'm so glad you said that, because I feel like, true, same for me. Like, when it's imposter syndrome too. You just go, wait, why is everybody here? Should I be here? But a lot of people
try to work anymore.
People pretend like they want to be in those kind of rooms until they get in them and it start messing with your ego. And you're like, I'm like, I know a lot about business, but I don't know this.
And the crazy
like,
part is,
what are they talking about?
Whoever is listening to this now, even saying it, people like, not me. People are still saying not me, but it's like until you are in that situation, you don't realize how big the ego is. People talk about the ego being big, and I can say, like, I've never been a person to walk around with a big ego on my shoulder or think I'm better than anybody, but ego is in everybody, and ego will take over in those rooms because nobody wants to feel like they can't contribute, they don't have enough value to offer to this, or you know better than me, and I have nothing to offer. And I've had to learn. It goes back to me giving myself grace. It goes back to me doing my due diligence when I get home. Like, I'm gonna make sure I take my takeaways, and if it's something I have to look up or understand more, it is what it is. But I'm gonna show you that I'm learning. And I think another part of it too for me is knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. So like for wherever, and we don't call them weaknesses, we call them opportunities, right? And so for my opportunity, like knowing what I need to do my homework on and doing that, but also being patient and like, when it's time for me to shine, I'm shining. I know what I'm good at. And right now, we're in a position of the project or this or that where that's what they do. That's why these men are in this business.
This moment,
like they're moguls for a reason, and it's like you might shine when stuff actually gets open for operate, like you snap, whatever it is. Like, but you gonna have your moment where people see you, because at the end of the day, they wouldn't be in here talking to you if they didn't.
If they see value in
you could contribute some way. So it's just being patient in that. I think another part of the ego too is like I'm fishing to try to show them like highlights of what I'm good at now, and it's like, just let it ride. Just let it ride. Like it's gonna come. But that part does have me like, that's something right now that's one of my biggest lessons. Like even down to
being humble and just being open to learning and listening.
Because
Charlamagne says this thing all the time, and to me it equates to ego. And I feel like because a lot of people know how to humble themselves in front of those rooms, they won't put themselves in situations where they feel intimidated. He said people are so stuck on what they think entrepreneurship looks like and being a boss looks like, that you have people that are willing to own 100% of nothing than 10% of a $5 million business.
Oh yeah, that's so true.
And I said,
that's so true.
Listen. I was gonna say you rather own 100% of nothing. Oh, no, this is gonna be I'm gonna be the boss.
That's what it is. People rather
work well with other people.
The big fish in a small pond than a small fish in a big pond.
Yes.
And that's the transition. A lot of people are so used to being the big dog that you will not step into rooms with more opportunity because you don't want to lose your position of power. And it's like, I don't care that I'm no longer the president in this room.
Yeah.
And I literally just went to being the secretary. And I'm like, I didn't ever been the secretary.
But you were secretary to Jeff Bezos.
I was offended though. I was real life offended. I was like, again, the transparent moment. I was like, never in my life, like scholar, 4.0 GPA, never got a C in my life, 2 B's maybe. And I've gone from being the president of everything to the secretary. But again, like it's setting the ego aside. And that's why I feel like emotional intelligence to me is like a big lesson. I'm learning. It's a process.
That was good.
It's a process because
I love that you brought EQ. I didn't even think about that either. I love that you brought it up in that way because I'm like, and especially like I feel like all of us in Wonder Transition phase were like, I'm dabbling in real estate too now. And just when you start talking to people, I remember. So I feel like I was guilty of this around this time last year. I met this guy, really successful, probably made his first million at like 24. And he's like a year younger than me. But nice guy, so sweet, humble, willing to teach and learn. And I just felt like I was learning so much from him. And I had to stop myself in conversation trying to sound smart.
Yeah.
I was like, I just don't want him to think that I'm slow. Because let me tell you something like how I am. I'm gonna ask questions. Like, mom knows something. Like, what does that mean? Okay, one more time. Explain that for me. And so I was doing that so much because he was operating at such a high level. Because I feel like once you hit the $1 million mark and you learn how to scale
the business,
translate it anymore. I think you do, but I think you think at the level you're at already. So you can take yourself back to your beginning levels, but you're thinking, and you're used to dealing with people on this level. So when you're talking, you're just talking how you normally talk, forgetting, okay, I'm gonna have to go to this teacher mode maybe. And so I feel like I was doing that so much, and I like said something, and it wasn't that it was dumb. It's just that personally, I knew that I was only saying it so that I could sound smart to him. And I was just like it's an intern, like literally I knew I was just trying to sound smart to this dude who I know is way smart, maybe not even way smarter than me, but just highly intelligent, just highly effective in his job. And I just wanted to look to him, and I wanted him to look at me and be like, oh, she's smart, she's gonna be good, she's on her way. Like I wanted him to feel that way, and I'm like, you know, and like that takes a level of self-awareness that a lot of people don't have. But and I internalized that. So first I'm saying that out loud, but I just remember driving home going, why do I have this? Did you know the ocean only discovered? Like I was throwing out and we went deep. Oh, I have my topics there. Oh, you gonna know that I know some stuff, okay? I was throwing out.
I'm throwing out the topics I know a lot of.
That's what I'm gonna throw out what I know, so you know that I know something. Instead of just using them extra moments just to keep crying. Like, I learned so much from this dude after one dinner, like, and a few conversations. Like, I was just like, man is smart. Like, and it wasn't, I was going, so he has a certain industry, his industry is like advertising, but I started asking about like stocks. And it's like, he was well versed in that. And then I was like, oh, real estate. And the stuff, but Bree was like, he wasn't an expert at all of the stuff, but he knew a lot of it. He knew a lot of it. Like, he knew more than he was like, I'm not versed in that, but if you're gonna do it like this way, I would advise maybe going this route. And then, you know, he would just go into the, and I'm like, I was like, hold on, let me just pull up my notes. But like, to your point, just trying to not fighting yourself going, this guy knows that I'm not dumb. I'm like, yeah, why did I even think that he would think, like, or why did I want him to really see, oh, she's gonna be there for me? Like, I just needed to believe that for myself, so that when I was around him, I was getting as much information as I can. And I feel like now that I'm learning and I'm growing, you know how they say the people with the list are the loudest? Yes. I feel myself, the older I get to, and not that I'm near millionaire yet, but just the more I'm able to learn how to deal with finances better, real estate and stuff, you know, like I'm starting to become better at being silent to people that I don't think are open to listening and understanding. So I probably know a lot more than other people about, well, people that I guess are in my environment about business, but that's only because I started my business in college. So it's been like 8 years now since I started. So I know a lot. So a lot of times when people come to me to just start, I have way more foundation. I know a lot in that capacity that they don't. But I feel like sometimes people try to come, like you said, it's like they're either trying to impress you or they're trying to say, oh, well, I know. No, what are we talking about? Like what are we talking about? You know, and so it's like, no, you really didn't know, and you want to know, but so be open, your ego, your pride, because you think that I think, and it's like, the truth be told, I don't think anything of you actually. I'm just glad you called me. I'm happy to help you. So I'm like you said, I'm leading a love approach. And in your mind, you're coming to my conversation thinking, oh, Nyrie's gonna think this certain thing about me. She's gonna think I'm not smart. And it's like, the other person is not even, they're like, ooh, they're excited. They're like, ooh, this new person has to start a business. Let me give all the tips. Like, sometimes if somebody's willing to talk to you, they're excited about what you have going. But it's hard to really humble yourself and go, this person's trying to help me. Let me not try to come into this impressing them with what I know. Let me just ask questions and let me listen.
And people don't realize how much there is to gain in that. And I've always been the type of person as well. Like, if I don't understand something, I'm gonna ask. If I don't know if I don't know what it means, I'm gonna ask.
And you hit me with that little, you don't know, I'm gonna say,
yeah,
I know.
But then people who are doing that too, they're also, it's either to inflate themselves or to make you look smaller.
That's true.
And it took me being around friends who I like. So Matrix, she said to me, probably like for the first time, 2 years ago, she was like, you know, I one of the things that I learned from you is that you're okay with saying if you don't know something. And then that to me made me realize, okay, well, this is a good trait. And you know, she was expressing to me about like how sometimes like she's even had to catch herself from like Googling underneath the table instead of just being comfortable asking. And I
still do that. Maybe you can talk about some other, because I thought people don't want to know. No, sometimes just so you got to hit it.
No, but I'm still saying it out loud. I'm gonna look it up, but I'm gonna say it out loud. be ashamed to go in there like you said,
Like,
humble
just-
yourself and asking
I'm
for
open, I'm
advice.
thirsty for the knowledge.
Yes.
Learn.
And I feel like people
help
don't understand
Teach
how
you.
powerful that is to the people who are giving it. Like people who come
Yes.
ask you for something, like you said,
Yeah.
to her, you're happy that somebody's asking for
Ask
your
me,
guidance.
yeah.
Because for me, that's confirmation that I'm doing something right,
Yeah.
right? So you're ready to pour that into somebody,
Yeah.
but don't go in there thinking that you have to impress them. Like a lot of times people will walk away saying, I don't work with them. They real receptive to feedback.
Mhm.
They real curious about, or they have an interest in this. And those are the people who are willing to learn
Yes.
are the people that other people want to bring along and not a know-it-all.
No.
Don't nobody want to bring a
Nobody wants to
know-it-all.
bring a know-it-all. And I have been tagged that title my whole life. And that's something I've had to unlearn too. And it's just like, but again, the more I become knowledgeable about a topic, it's true. Like it's really true. Like you don't really need to prove anything because you're like, I know what I know. Like this is what I do know. I'm not going to convince you of it, but I'm gonna get silent if you try to tell me, especially if I feel like maybe you don't know this or you're not listening, and people just don't want to hear it. And so I feel like for you, when you're saying, oh, Rachel's is like, oh, you listen well. I mean, not you listen well, but you don't have a problem saying when you don't know something. Well, I don't know if you know this about yourself, but see, that's not a far stretch for me because I feel like you are a great listener. And I know that probably you because that's something that I like. And I have most of my life just talking too much and listening and you listen intentionally. And you've been that way since I've known you. And so it's not a far stretch for me that you like, I'm like, oh, I can see you say, oh, I know what you're talking about. Because you're sitting there listening like, run that back. If I say something, you like, one more time. Okay, so and what does that mean? Okay, keep going. And you do that. But I've always been like, I'm just gonna keep talking. Like I just like I want to talk, which I really love to talk. But sometimes like the reason a lot of people that talk miss a lot is because when you talk a lot, even when you're trying to listen, it's hard to listen intentionally. And so I feel like sometimes you probably, this is so random, but one time you and I went out, this was years ago, and I feel like we were at like this club and these guys were like trying to talk to us or something like that, and we ended up talking to this dude, and I just remember like we were having it was a quick conversation, and it wasn't too deep, but it was intelligent. And so you asked a question, and then you asked another question, and I was like, it's a good question. And I was like, what are you thinking about? Like when she goes, like, how did she get there? It was such a good question. It was a question that I'm like, and I feel like it made you look smart too. So I was low key like, that's that on my damn on a date. I love that. Like whatever you said, I cannot remember the nature of what you said, but I remember, and I said, wow, when we were talking to the guys, they must have trying to leave money or something, I'm sure. But they said something like, they must have said something along the lines of, oh, I have that business, I invested in that, or something like that. And see, for me, it's like I heard it, and in my mind, you were trying to impress me, so I threw it back in my mind. And so I'm just like, oh, whatever. Okay, so yeah, you did this. Oh, I did it too, blah, 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 now we're doing this. But for you, you didn't internalize it that way. You didn't go, oh, he's trying to impress, even though you knew that he was. You went, so invest in what? And what are the numbers on that? And I was like, that is so interesting. Because I didn't do it that way. I was like, oh, here, Tammy, I do the same stuff. You're not about to tell me. But you, in turn, you went and you started digging deeper. And I was just like, that is beautiful that she did this. Because I'm not caring what he was talking about for real anyways. But the fact that you're like that in general, like when we used to be at work, like just the things that you would take away from a conversation, like I should really start practicing listening a little more because I did not get any of that from the conversation. I don't know how it came out. And we were sitting in the same room, and like what you've always been really good at asking good questions, and I think you ask good questions because you listen well. And so for me, I'm like, yeah, I want to do that because I want to get away from the arguments and know it all stage. But I think that's so hard to be young too, because now I'm like, the know-it-all stuff it's just nobody knows it. Like you fail enough times, you go, I don't really know. I don't really know much of anything at this point. I'm just trying to take my life day by day. So okay.
But that's I wanted to comment on that you said because first of all, thank you. But I feel like too, listening for me is like there's so much to be gained from listening. And I think a lot of times people just for one speaking a lot like
I don't know either, because you were about to comment on something I said, and I said a lot. I talk a lot. But I said a lot, because as we know, I talk a lot. You were about to comment on, I don't know, gated.
Speaking on the
I'm
part
saying
of,
you listen well.
Yes.
And then,
so I was saying there's a lot to be learned from listening. It's not only just the content that you're receiving in that room, but it's a lot of subliminals as well. And so like I remember when we used to hang out a lot in Atlanta, like there was this one time too where you were even like, dang, bro, you hanging on what tag number? Like you said,
you were like a parent. I don't wear my surroundings. I have not gotten older, but you are one of those. Like, you didn't see that black car next to the blue car?
Yeah.
Because I was like, no.
But there's so much to be gained from listening, not only just the observation, but people's speech patterns, people's mindset, people's beliefs, just a lot of things like people who people have bias towards it or non-biased towards, who are there more positive towards or a little bit more pessimistic towards, and then from that you can get to, not that you will know a person from that, but you get to formulate when it's time for me to talk to that person, like I have a little bit more of a backpack wealth of information on them than I would have if I'm just speaking to them based off of, oh, they just my coworker who's always in a meeting. And another thing that I realized too is that a lot of times, and not just speaking on you, but people who just have a lot to say about a certain subject, like just from me learning a lot in my life, like I realized that the more I learn, the more sometimes I get confused about what my standpoint is. But that's because you have learned a lot. I don't know just what I know and what I want to believe, but I also know enough to hear to where I have a on-fence type of opinion when it comes to certain subjects. And a lot of times what you'll find is if you bring up a subject and the people who have the hardest opinion in the room, they have the least amount of information, because if all of your focus and energy is on this opinion,
say it one more time.
I don't remember what I said.
The
people who have the most to say about a subject have the least amount of information, and it's because they're only speaking on what they believe or what they know. Because you'll see that people who are on the fence, it's because they know both sides to it, or they've at least done enough research to know the pros and cons, or I can see why this, I can see why that. But if you just have so much to say about this, and you one of those people like, this way,
they don't know,
because you don't know the other side. So you just have to stand firm and decide that you do know so hard. And so I'm always cautious of people who have that extreme polar opinion on something as well.
Oh, agree, same. We were just talking about this last night though. We got into a deep talk. This is like issues. Okay, so thank you so much for coming on, Bree. To wrap up the interview, I have everybody do what I call an end tip, and it's just something for people maybe entering their 20s or in their mid-20s, just a tip that you feel like either one, that you live by, or you gave us that quote earlier, or just a piece of advice for them to get through their 20s. Like, what's your end tip for someone?
So, my end tip is going to be another quote, another saying, but I think there's a lot that was said throughout it. That's like little gems and stuff that ties into it. But for those watching this, if this episode really spoke to you, I would say the main thing to remember in your 20s, working on your entrepreneur adventures, or if you do like corporate is great. Don't take away from this that it's not a good option for people, military or whatever, but just remembering that comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And a lot of times, just with the way that our world is, microwave generation, we want instant gratification. We're the social media generation, and a lot of times we compare what we see against the timeline of where we should be. And if you're constantly comparing yourself, and you don't have to be the person, I don't compare myself to other people, but I compare myself against the timeline that I think people are doing stuff at, or what people who are 25 should have done by now. And so no matter if it's other people you're comparing yourself to, or a timeline of things or materials, it's always going to be the thief of the joy that you should have for where you are right now. And so it's just remembering that living your life in continuous years. I said that earlier. Like, if you're not living your life in continuous years, comparison is always going to be the thief of your joy, because you're constantly talking about when you get this or when you get that. But living in the now, And a lot of stuff that we see, like that's a whole nother tangent. Like don't believe stuff that you see on social media, or don't be convinced of everything that people are telling you to do. But find genuine people in your life to where you don't feel the need to validate yourself against anybody's timeline but your own. But that comes from a level of just being grounded in whether it's God that you believe in or the universe. Some people. Did I say that right? Universe.
Yeah, I mean, some people are just spiritual people. Some people believe in religion, you know, but whatever God you pray to or believe in.
Just be grounded in that, because it's a lot of external factors that's going to come and try to derail your course. And if you stand firm in something, you're not going to let those little tricks that are going to come derail you from your mission and your purpose. And also know too, like whatever does come to derail you, it's a part of the process. So like just fully immerse yourself in it.
Everything that comes to, and also too, sorry to cut you off, but just speaking of things that come to derail you, I think people always associate tough lessons with the devil. And sometimes it's God. Sometimes it's God sending the lessons to you. He's our father. He's teaching you like a father. So sometimes you are going to have situations that you think they're not coming to destroy you, they're coming to build you.
And to wrap it up even more, I feel like we're connected everything we talked about. You gotta listen. So to know if it's from the devil, to know it's for God, you have to be listening, you have to be in tune. And that literally means like sometimes you just have to be quiet and take some time in solitude, unplug from everything around you. No influences from social media, family or friends. Like sometimes like me, I have to call because I'm always unplugged. But if you're that person who's always plugged in, you need to unplug and you need to figure out like, what is this trying to teach me? Why do I keep getting stuck on the same level? Like if you ever played a game, I'm still stuck on level 5. You keep doing the same thing when level 5 start over again. So you just keep losing. You keep losing. So you got to try something different. You got to listen a little bit more and figure out what it is that you're supposed to gain, so that at level 6, 7, and 8, you're able to propel forward with these new lessons that you learned. So
that's a good end tip. So I would say my end tip is just to, for this episode, is just to kind of piggyback off of what you said to wrap things up. Bree just said that comparison is a thief of joy, and I want y'all to also remember you cannot idolize somebody else's life and only want the good parts of their life. If you are saying, I'm going to compare myself to Jada Wade or Beyonce, okay, so let's talk about Beyonce's struggles. She's been ridiculed in the media. Everything she does, if her child, they started a petition because they felt like Blue Ivy's hair was nappy and it had 5,700 signatures. Can you deal with that? Infidelities in your marriage. You can't want to be Beyonce and not want any of Beyonce's problems. Jada, you see the little baby stuff all the time. You cannot want to be on private jets like Jada, have your hair slayed by Tay like Jada, and not want to deal with the other parts. Everybody has their own personal battles and struggles and demons and things that they have to overcome in their life. So keep in mind, you're just, sorry to be cliche, but you're looking at a highlight reel of people's lives. So when you finish, when you get done idolizing what they have, which a lot of times is material things, you go back and you look at all their problems and everything they've been through too, and say, well, I want this life for myself. Because although I love Beyonce, one of my favorite celebrities, I don't know, like mentally, I think it would take a toll on me mentally, and just the marriage problems, the great, I'm not married yet, but just a lot of that stuff, I'm like, no, I just want the glitzy glam. You can save all the troubles. That's not how life works. So again, comparison is a thief of joy for obvious reasons, but also just keep in mind, like, everybody has problems. Everybody has problems. So let's wrap up this episode of Surviving Your 20s with Bree. Thank you so much for coming. We're gonna do a part 2 because we did it. I'm getting through our questions, but I mean, like, it's so much that we could talk about. Because I could do a whole episode on jobs, whole episode on friendships, whole episode on relationships. We could do episodes on each topic literally for an hour. So thank y'all for tuning in for this, and we are